our video today, we are talking about triangles. So, our learning target today is I can identify and solve problems using triangles. Please write down the date you're watching this and write down what you already know about triangles. So, you probably know quite a few things about triangles. You know a triangle has three sides, you know it's a shape, you know a whole bunch of things about triangles. So, think about what you already know about triangles, write that down, and then continue with the vocabulary. Once again, we have quite a few vocabulary words. As I said before, this is a very big vocabulary unit. So we're going to go over the vocabulary slowly. Feel free to pause the video as much as you need to make sure that you're understanding this. Or you could listen and watch the whole thing, then go back and fill out your notes sheet. So either way, if you want to pause as you go and go back and forth, or watch me go through the vocabulary and then go back and fill out your notes sheet yourself. So our first vocabulary word is interior angles. Interior angles are the angles inside of a figure. So I drew a little example here, and it's a triangle, and it has three angles inside the triangle. Those are the interior angles of the triangle. Next vocabulary word is exterior angles. Exterior angles are adjacent supplementary angles. That means they're next to, and that's what adjacent means. And supplementary means form 180 degrees. So adjacent supplementary angles outside a figure. So again, I drew a little picture here. I have a little triangle, and my exterior angle is this one right here. So I have a triangle, and then I had a line that sort of continued from the bottom of the triangle. Then my exterior angle is the angle formed by the adjacent the line coming out from the triangle, and then it goes next to the triangle. And it is supplementary along here. So these angles together form 180 degrees, and that's really important for when we solve problems later. Our next vocabulary word is acute triangle. An acute triangle has three acute angles. All three of its angles are less than 90 degrees. And when that happens, we call it an acute triangle. Next, we have right triangle. A right triangle has one right angle. So here's my right angle. And you'll notice that the other two angles are acute. That's because we couldn't draw a triangle with three right angles. If I tried, I said, okay, here's the right angle, here's the right angle. Well, the only way for me to make another right angle, well, I'd have to form a square. That's not a triangle. So a triangle just needs one right angle in order to become a right triangle. That's similar with obtuse triangles. For an obtuse triangle also only needs one obtuse angle. The other two are acute angles. So again, just make sure that you are paying attention to some of that. And it only needs one to be obtuse. These three vocabulary words, and you can make a note here if you want, are used to classify triangles by their angles. If we wanted to name a triangle based on its angle measures, we would use the words acute, right, and obtuse. Okay? Our next vocabulary word is congruent sides. Congruent sides are sides of a figure that are the same length. So, for example, in my little picture I drew, these two sides are the same length. The bottom is not. And you know they're the same length because of these little lines that I drew. Those lines mean that the figure is congruent. The other thing that means congruent is this little equal sign with the little squiggly above it. That equal sign with the squiggly above it, that means congruent. Congruent is basically equals, but for geometry. It means they're the same in every way. So we use the equal signs with that little squiggly over it. That means congruent. And those little lines on the sides might mean congruent. You can cross off the word congruent angles because we had that vocabulary word in our last video. Our next vocabulary word is equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle has 3 congruent sides. So in my picture here, you can tell they're congruent because all 3 of them have that little line. And then I also said that all 3 of them were 9 long. That means that all 3 sides are the same. That makes it an equilateral triangle. Next is isosceles triangle. An isosceles triangle has 2 congruent sides. So in this case, this one and this one both have that line. That means those 2 are the same. The bottom is not the same. So in this case, I said that the 2 sides that are the same are both 8 and the bottom is 5. So isosceles, only 2 sides are the same. Equilateral, all 3 were the same. Scalene, none of them are the same. As you can see, I have no lines anywhere on this shape. So these 3 words right here, equilateral, isosceles, and scalene, we can use those to classify triangles by their sides. And the difference between classifying by angles and by their sides is going to come up in the problems that we do in a little bit here. But it is a big difference. So when we get to that point, you want to make sure that you have marked that acute, right, obtuse help you classify triangles by angles, and equilateral, isosceles, scalene, those have to do with their side lengths. The first thing to do, so here, pause the video, get caught up on all of this, please do so. And then when you are ready, continue the video down to here. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is angles on a triangle. And there's a rule. The rule is that the angles of a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. It's a rule. They always, 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 always do. So anytime we draw a triangle, the 3 angles in the corners, those have to add up to 180 degrees. And this is very, very useful for solving problems. So let's say we had a triangle that looked like this. I told you that this is a 26-degree angle. This is an 83-degree angle. And I left this one marked as X. Well, if I wanted to solve and figure out what X is, well, I know that 26 plus 83 plus X has to equal 180 because of my rule up here. So now I can just add 26 plus 83, that's 109. So 109 plus something is 180. At this point, I can subtract my 109, and I get that X equals 71 degrees. And in that way, I can always figure out, if I know 2 of the angles, I can always figure out the 3rd angle. Here's another example. Let's say we had a triangle that looked like this. And we have a 43-degree angle, a 79-degree angle, and this one was Y. Pause the video here, see if you can solve this on your own. Then continue when you're ready to check your work. Okay, in this case, I know that 43 plus 79 plus Y equals 180. 43 plus 79, if we do that on our calculator or in our head, either one is fine, I get 122 plus Y equals 180. Now I can subtract my 122, and I get that Y equals 50 degrees. Hopefully that's what you got it as well. Some people don't like to show this much work. They like to say, okay, 43 plus 79, I know that's 122. And just do 180 minus 122 right away to the 8. If you see that and you're like, yep, that totally makes sense to me, then it's totally fine for you to just solve it like that. But if you need to walk through it a little more carefully and make doubly sure that you're correct, then this way over here looks a little longer, but it's really the exact same thing. We can also find exterior angles of triangles. So let's say we have a triangle that looks like this. And I put that square there, and then I had 55 degrees, 35 degrees, and I said that's x. In order to find x, well, we need to remember what this right here is supplementary. That means 35 plus x has to equal 180. In this case, y has to equal 145. I'm going to show you one more, so we're just going to kind of take over some of this section's area, and that'll be okay. Let's say we had a triangle that looks like this. And I told you that this was 60 degrees, and this was 52 degrees. And then I said this is x, and this is y. To solve this problem, I have two variables. I need to find x and I need to find y. I'm going to talk you through how to do it, and then this is what you are going to answer in your check for Schoology in order to move on and do the next assignment. So, to solve this problem, the first thing you want to do is you want to find x. Now, we know that 60 plus 52 plus x has to equal 180 because these three form a triangle. We can solve this to find x. We'll have 112 plus x equals 180. And then we can find out what x is. Once you know what x is, we also know that x plus y equals 180 because, so once you know what x is, you can solve the problem just like we did up here to figure out what y is. So in your check for this assignment, it's going to ask you to fill in what is x and what is y. So please make sure you fill out both of those in order to move on to the next assignment. Okay? The next type of problem we need to be able to do is classifying triangles by sides or angles. So let's say I had a triangle and I told you that it had, and I gave you the measurements, 3 feet, and 1 feet. These are side lengths of the triangle. So if I want to determine what type of triangle this is, I need to go back up to my notes and find up here where it says classify triangles by the sides. Classifying triangles by sides means it can be equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. Okay? Well, equilateral has 3 congruent, isosceles has 2 congruent, scalene has no congruent. So now I can go back 3 feet, 3 feet, 1 feet. I see that I have 2 congruent sides. Both of those are the same. That means that this is an isosceles triangle. Similarly, if I told you that I had a triangle with measurements 8 meters, 4 meters, and 9 meters. Again, meters is the length. These are side lengths. See if you can figure out what kind of triangle this is and then come back and check your work. Okay? 8, 4, and 9. Those are all different. So looking up here, the one that's all different is scalene. That means this is a scalene triangle. So that is classifying by side lengths. We can also classify by angle measures, and that will look like this. Let's say the measurements I gave you were 60 degrees, 50 degrees, and 70 degrees. When I see all of these degrees right here, I know that this time it's asking me to classify by the angle measures. Degrees are always angle measures. So now we need to go look up and find our angle measures. Angle measures was acute, right, or obtuse. So I want to know, does it have any right or obtuse angles, or are they all acute? Well, 60, 50, and 70, those are all less than 90. All three of them are acute. That means that this is an acute triangle. So for our last one, let's say I gave an angle that was 20 degrees, 70 degrees, and 90 degrees. Again, we're classifying with angle measures. And this one you're actually going to also enter into Schoology. So you're going to have 3 answers for Schoology. You will have X and Y equal up here. And then I want you to tell me if this is acute, right, or obtuse. What type of triangle is this? Is this acute, right, or obtuse? So you are going to have 3 answers that you need to put into your check for Schoology in order to move on. Please let me know if you need any help with that, if you have any questions, or if there's anything else I can do, and have a great day.